Champ, you're being really, really nice to Stephen Fulton. Not only was his last fight less than stellar, he looked downright ordinary.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Boxing Scene's Top Stories here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. I'm George the Metellus. Would like to remind you to download the ProBox TV app where apps are available. And joining us here on Top Stories is our world champions. We have Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi joining us here on Top Stories. Well, February 1st, Prime Video pay-per-view alongside with PBC, obviously a great main event. A couple of light heavyweight contenders as David Benavidez will be taking on David Morrell with the winner in line for a shot at Artur Beterbiev. Also a fantastic undercard as well. We'll get to the fights on the undercard in just a second, but time to bring in the champions. Paulie, let's start with this matchup between Benavidez and Morrell. That is going to be one great fight. What should people expect from that fight? What are you looking forward to in that fight?
Yeah, really good fight. Two top guys, two guys vying for title shots, two guys who couldn't get a title shot at super middleweight, so they've taken their act to the light heavyweight division, where hopefully the winner of this fight can move into, or at least get a little bit closer to a title shot. The issue is here, super middleweight has an undisputed champion, light heavyweight has an undisputed champion, so there's only one road to travel in each weight class, and they weren't able to get that title shot at super middleweight, so they've both taken their act to the light heavyweight division. But you know, with Artur Beterbiev possibly rematching Bivol, the winner of this fight may have to wait. We'll see. One thing I'll say. This is a very evenly matched fight. Very difficult to call a definitive winner. But if somebody can really stand head and shoulders above the other one in the matchup like this, they may be able to fast-track themselves into a fight with Beterbiev.
Yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts on this Benavidez-Morrell fight?
I mean, this is a fantastic matchup, not only just from a style perspective, but I think just in terms of mentality. You've got two young guys who are willing to put it all on the line against each other, risking their undefeated records. You know, David Morrell's only 11-0, you know, and Benavidez has more than double the amount of fights and experience and has been a world champion already. But Morrell's one of those guys. He's going to be very, very avoided because he's an excellent fighter. He's got good power. He's got fantastic length and style and athleticism. You know, not the kind of guy you really want to fight unless you absolutely have to. And he doesn't have a lot of experience. He doesn't have a huge profile. But he's extremely, extremely dangerous and has the ability to beat almost anybody in the world at any given night. And Benavidez, man, this guy, he is just in for all the smoke. He wants to fight the best fighters all around him. He truly believes in himself, him and his team. They know what they have, they know what they're working with, and they're willing to take any fight possible to get to where they want to be, and that's to be an undisputed world champion. So I love this fight from top to bottom. And on top of that, the card's fantastic as well.
Yeah, I think David Benavidez might be one of our top 3 favorite fighters here on ProBox TV. All right, Chris, you mentioned the undercard. Let's talk about Pitbull Cruz returning to the ring after losing the WBA super lightweight title to Jose Valenzuela back in August. He's fighting Angel Fierro, a San Diego-based Mexican. What should people expect from that fight? What are you looking forward to in that one?
Fierro's no cupcake, man. I've called some of his fights before. He's very, very tough. This is not an easy fight for Isaac Cruz coming off of his disappointing loss to Valenzuela, where he lost his title. And listen, man, seems like some of these cards are starting to take a page out of the ProBox TV book, and they're actually making cards that are good from top to bottom. So we've got a whole card that's full of stacked fights. Every time Isaac Cruz fights, it's entertaining. He comes forward, he throws bombs. His nickname is Pitbull for a reason. You know, now we're seeing clips of him when he blasted out Rollies, which was a fantastic night. But then he put up a dud against Valenzuela. But Valenzuela, truly to his credit, put on a fantastic performance against a very dangerous Cruz. But you know, Fierro's going to come, man. He understands the platform that he's at, who he's in against. And like I said, I've called some fights with him before. He's very, very tough. So not an easy night for Isaac Cruz at all. So another very good matchup on the card.
Yeah, Cruz tends to be a guy who complicates everything for our entertainment. You know, he's never really in an easy fight unless he gets he blows you away and knocks you out. But he's a guy who basically takes it to you, exciting style, doesn't take a step back, chases the fight. And if you get a willing dance partner like Fierro, you know, it's probably a matchup that we can expect to be entertained by.
All right, well, speaking of dance partners, Brendan Figueroa and Stephen Fulton, are very familiar with each other. Back November 2021, Fulton beat Figueroa in a unification bout at 122. This time, it'll be Figueroa's WBC featherweight title on the line. Paulie, what do you make of this match between Figueroa and Fulton?
Yeah, kind of going in opposite directions now. You know, at the time when Fulton got the very close razor-thin decision, you know, he kind of moved on to other things, and Figueroa was kind of left looking for a rematch that he really just never got, you know. And Fulton was able to catapult himself continuously forward to the point where he got the Inoue fight. Now, after the Inoue loss, hasn't really come back looking so stellar. Figueroa has continued to bring that momentum in his style and entertainment value. And so he's picked up a championship here at featherweight, and Fulton also being a featherweight. Now you got this matchup again, but it seems like their roles have sort of reversed now in terms of where they went after that initial matchup. They both had some good momentum going into the first matchup. It was a very good matchup. But since then, Fulton has gone up and then kind of come back down, while Figueroa has continued to make those moves. And, you know, it's a real sort of testing kind of fight here for Fulton, because so far there's been a lot of questions after the Inoue fight. And in facing Figueroa, you're going to face a guy who's bringing a lot of pressure and a lot of that, both mentally and physically. As a matter of fact, if Figueroa can eliminate Fulton here in impressive fashion, I think he puts himself in a good position to possibly attract an Inoue fight.
Chris, what do you make of this matchup between Figueroa and Fulton?
Champ, you're being really, really nice to Stephen Fulton. Not only was his last fight less than stellar, he looked downright ordinary. You know, he had a lot of trouble. I think he was off about 18 months after the Inoue fight. Came back, got dropped, barely won a razor-thin split decision. Now, that being said, Figueroa didn't look great in his last fight either. He ended up scoring a knockout with a body shot. But Figueroa, man, I think in terms of timing and weight class, this all favors Figueroa. He's really big for even 126. He's very, very tall. He's long. So they fought at 122. As you said, razor-thin decision. Figueroa looked like he was the guy. Fulton was the guy that night. You know, squeaked out that decision, but also Fulton was on a really good run against very, very good competitors. Got the Inoue fight. Obviously, we all know how that went. And since then, both guys have been a little bit inactive, but Figueroa looked a little better at 126 than Fulton did. So as you said, they're in a very different or opposite transitions at this point in terms of where they are in their careers. I like this fight, but I favor Figueroa. I think the weight class helps him, and I think the timing helps him because of how ordinary Fulton looked in his last fight.
It's going to be a very interesting rematch between Figueroa and Fulton. All right, let's close it out here with ProBox TV alumnus Jason Rosario coming off that, I guess you could say, disappointing result, the draw against Jarrett Hurd. He's going up against Jesus Alejandro Ramos Jr. Chris, what do you make of this match between Rosario and Ramos?
Listen, I have a lot of respect for Ramos. I think he's a really, really fantastic young fighter and someone who will probably be a world champion once again. We just saw his uncle fight Mario Barrios and fight to a razor-thin split draw to drop a title opportunity. But and how Ramos Jr. is excellent. You know, his only loss is to Hammer. And, you know, that was a really close fight as well. A lot of people could have seen it going either way. But I rate him very highly. I think at this weight class, he's got great height and reach, good power, good skills, very, very tough. And Rosario, man, he's on the back end of his career. You know, he squeaked by in that Jarrett Hurd fight. Did some impressive stuff in there, but he was against a guy who was, again, also very much on the back end of his career and a shadow of his former self. So we'll see what he can do with a guy like Ramos, but I wouldn't expect all that much.
Yeah, this is more so where's Ramos been lately? You know, where in the world has he been for a while, right? We were expecting a return after the Lubin fight where he looked good despite the loss, and you sort of left you a bit curious. So the fact that he's back now, you can see Rosario sort of being used as the opponent. You know, he didn't look overly spectacular against Hurd. Sort of looked a bit shop-worn, as they both did in that fight. And so you put yourself in a position where you sort of get this medium-range opportunity here against Ramos, but it's more so to elevate Ramos than anything else, and that's what's expected here in this fight. But we'll see how Rosario resists.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be interesting from top to bottom. A great card put together by PBC. Prime Video, February 1st. Prime Video pay-per-view, I should say, February 1st. And of course, the results and the fights, we will talk about them and get our insights with the world champions here on Top Stories. We'd like to remind you to scan the QR code, like, subscribe, and leave your comments on our YouTube channel. Download the ProBox TV app, where apps are available, because on December 7th, once again, from Ireland, we will have the Contender Series. Should be some great fights in Ireland on December 7th on your boxing channel. I'm George D. Metellus. This is Boxing Scene's Top Stories.
ProBox TV Contender Series. On December 7th, look for an all-out Irish war as Dylan the Real Deal Moran battles Tyrone the Mighty Celt McKenna at the top of a stacked ProBox-worthy card.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.